In BioShock 2, the kind of core story takes place 10 years after the events of the first game. The underwater city called Rapture is kind of being reclaimed by the ocean spilling into it, and there are, you play this character called a Big Daddy, this kind of hulking guy in a diving suit. And he's a prototype, the very, very first Big Daddy, and he's sort of on a quest to recover his humanity. As the first Big Daddy, you're a kind of lighter, faster prototype, and a relatively desperate character against some of the nasty things that have evolved. We wanted the experience to be very, very additive. So if you've played BioShock 1, the speed and controls are very similar. The difference is that over the course of the game, if you want to be the sort of bruiser, then you invest in the close-up weapons. If you want to be a sort of lighter, quieter sniper, then you invest in that player path. As a Big Daddy, one of the things that that affords you is the ability to go outside of Rapture and explore the kind of underwater terrain that surrounds it. Once you go out there, you can kind of pick up pieces of the story, power yourself up, like there are live atom slugs squirming around out there that allow you to sort of, you know, juice up your abilities. And you can even sort of voyeuristically look into spaces that you're going to enter and see some familiar places from BioShock 1 that might be getting reclaimed by the sea. End of BioShock 1, the protagonist departs, and that is well known. And there's sort of a fierce religious debate between the splicers who have kind of gone tribal and a little bit nuts in his absence. And they believe that he either had one of the endings or the other, and they debate it kind of constantly. And meanwhile, those that have managed to stay alive all this time have kind of had to prey on their best friends. They use this genetic substance called Adam, and they're addicted to it. And so the ones that are still around are becoming very post-human. They're becoming more monstrous. The Big Sister is a very much unique entity. She is a former little sister who, for some reason, which is part of the game's story, wasn't able to let Rapture go in her memory. So she returns and kind of puts herself through the process of becoming a Big Daddy. So she sits very, very high on the kind of food chain of Rapture. In BioShock 1, as this character, Jack, you were very much a stranger to the Little Sisters. You kind of would approach them and they didn't know what to think of you. BioShock 2, your family, you know, you approach a little sister and she immediately trusts you, as she's been sort of conditioned to do. That allows you to kind of lift her up and put her on your shoulders. We actually hate escort quests, and I'm willing to go on the record and mention that. The fight is centered largely on you, because like BioShock 1, you have to take the Big Daddy out to get the little sister. If one of them makes it to her, he's sort of keeping the fight going. He's interfering with her finishing the gather, and so you have to get him off of her. But she doesn't actually die. It's not like a sort of fragile, brittle experience where, like, oh man, I failed and I didn't even know it happened. You know, like you actually are kind of defending yourself from the encounter going on forever. BioShock 2 is being developed by 2K Marin and 2K Australia. Now, the BioShock 2 team comes in part from the team that worked on the original game. So a small group of us seeded the 2K Marin studio, and since then we've been working with our sister studio, 2K Australia, who were large. You know, the entire studio was involved with the first game and are returning for the second one. Well, retaining the sort of human side of the BioShock world and the player's story is very important to us. So it's kind of a man within a monster. The Rapture world and history are very important to us. So all the culture that you remember from the first game, while it has evolved, is still very strongly derived from that hyper-commercial feel of the sort of objectivist utopia at the bottom of the sea. And so, if anything, we're kind of enriching those elements. The coolest thing, that at least for me, about Rapture is the idea that philosophy is in the walls. That the story that we have to tell is embedded everywhere. And so it's very pull. As much as you want to know about Rapture and about what caused that city to be built, all you have to do is look around. Same thing, the way that ideas are changing in Rapture, all you've got to do is explore them, and really it's as much as you're interested in pulling out of the world. I will say that we wouldn't ever want to offer less than the first game did in terms of choices. So the first game had a very binary ending. I'm not talking specifically about the way in which this game ends, because it's a huge-ass spoiler. That said, I will say that the decisions you made throughout the game shape the game's ending. BioShock 2 is a narrative-driven first-person shooter, and it is coming out for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC in fall of '09.